Hi, I'm Cristina Gibson here on the Pepperdine University campus in California, excited to share with you about investing in communities. This project is a very different approach to corporate community investment. Companies invest billions around the globe in the communities in which they do business. But this is often just an influx of funds or employees and volunteering at a charity event. It's a one-shot, arm's-length endeavor. The problem with this approach is that the funds don't always address the priorities of the community, and often there's very little evidence of true social impact, such as whether there was a transfer of skills or any uplift in capability. In this program, I began with a consortium of 11 major companies, a nonprofit, and an array of communities that were willing to try something new. Together, we explored what happens when company participants spend significant time living and working in the community, developing deep relationships with community partners. And this was a challenging setting. It was at-risk communities suffering from many social ills, unemployment, poverty, educational attrition, substance abuse. These particular communities were located in rural indigenous Australia, but they could easily have been in any American city or emerging economies around the world. The community partners and the company volunteers worked together to do some amazing things. They launched a small business development center. Another community formed a land council. They improved a medical facility. They developed literacy and nutritional programs. They implemented campaigns against smoking and alcoholism. They developed a cultural center. Another community built an aged care facility. Another one set up a youth hostel. So you might ask, how was all this accomplished, and how might it be replicated elsewhere? Over 3 years, I had the privilege of working directly in the communities, observing, interviewing, and collecting narratives. It was an incredible journey. I documented relational processes, which facilitated psychological pathways that in turn produced intermediate behavioral change and subsequently longer-term impact. And this occurred in both the community and in the companies. I identified 3 major pathways to development. The first pathway involves the relational process of mutual perspective taking, being able to walk in another person's shoes. When both parties did this, it helped cope with identity challenge, such as when a member has a foot in both worlds, both their indigenous culture and their mainstream economy. This resulted in technical and professional skill development. Among the corporate volunteers, the mutual perspective taking facilitated intercultural competency and adjustment. They came away with an ability to work smarter with those that are culturally different than themselves. The second pathway involved the relational process reciprocating respect, the value that's accorded to others simply as a function of being human. When both parties demonstrated respect, this created dignity among the indigenous partners, an increase in their sense of self-worth, and it enabled proactive taking charge of one's situation and life. For the corporate volunteers, mutual respect increased a sense of meaning and in turn enabled pro-social behavior, being helpful to others without being asked. The third and final pathway involved communal advocacy. Corporate volunteers advocated for the rights and opportunities of indigenous people, and the indigenous partners were more willing to advocate for the legitimacy of the presence of the company in the community. For indigenous partners, this increased self-determination and subsequently strategic capability. For the corporate volunteers, it increased a sense of thriving and helped to inform strategic decisions such as where and how operations should occur. I was truly astonished at just how powerful this program was for both the communities and the corporate leaders. In the communities, there was an improvement in labor force participation, meaning less unemployment, greater educational attainment, reductions in homicides, assaults, and robberies, and improvements in general health. On the corporate side, there was an increase in employee loyalty and performance, customer engagement, and reputational gains. Over the last decade, the programs have involved 2,500 corporate volunteers from 30 large corporations in support of 115 community programs. The project was awarded the American Psychological Association Humanitarian Impact Award, and it was recognized by the former Australian Prime Minister as a promising means to continue to build the capacity and capability of communities. In summary, through relational and psychological pathways, it appears that the billions invested in at-risk, remote, or rural communities can go beyond just an influx of funding to have real social impact that represents a sustained social return on investment.